Hour number 2 of Overdrive on Mail It In Friday, Getaway Friday, because it's the long weekend. There aren't many of these.
No. Gotta seize the moment.
That's right. And then there's one more, and then
Summer's over.
Summer of Yes Guy is gone.
Oh, man.
It's gone.
Summer of Summer is gone.
That's right. Yeah, because we're going to launch into some Olympic recapping here. And so Damian Warner is now 4th after 4 events at the decathlon. Bad shot put round for him. Dabrowski and Ojay Aliassime captured a bronze medal in mixed doubles. Ojay Aliassime will compete for the bronze medal in men's singles in tennis tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow. Canada's Kylie Mass wins the Olympic bronze medal, 200-meter backstroke. What else do we have? The basketball story, 8885, we're all over that. Soccer, Canada against Germany, women's soccer, 1 o'clock tomorrow. And this is must-win as well. You sure about that?
What do you mean?
I thought they had to play Nigeria. Did I have that wrong?
No, they got Germany tomorrow.
Okay.
In the quarterfinals.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, knockout round.
Yeah.
Must win.
And
right.
Sophie Ann Mathot wins the Olympic bronze in trampoline. So I think we're all up to date there. We forgot to mention the Leafs signed their draft pick, Ben
Danford.
Danford.
Yeah.
Yeah. 3-year contract. Sorry, I got a lot of stuff going on in my...
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot of stuff going on
here.
Stuff
going on in Paris. We got stuff going on here. We got basketball, hockey. Like it's a glorious time.
It is. And with the Olympics,
watching sports.
It's nonstop.
It's incredible.
It is. I love this. I mean, obviously it only happens, every 2 years with the rotating games, but the Summer Olympics are, I think, deeper in terms of athletic competition.
Just more stuff.
Yeah, and more marquee stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't even really on a lot of people's radar unless you're into running, but we just watched a spectacular men's 10,000-meter final before we came on the air here. And that is a great example of the stuff you get at an Olympics that is just so unique. Like you're just talking about guys just dying out there. 25 laps of a 400-meter track, essentially sprinting by all measures. I mean, it's the pace is just incredible. And then for Mo Ahmed of St. Catharines, Ontario, to go out there, and he was leading the race at one point. He's right in the thick of it down the final 100 meters and just gets nipped at the wire to be on the podium and finishes 4th. I mean, that was what a race, but what a little bit of heartbreak for Mo Ahmed, who, of course, won silver in the 5,000 meter at the Tokyo Olympics, but came, within, as you said, within a sneeze.
Yeah.
Within a sneeze.
0.65 seconds from 1 to 4.
After all that incredible hard work, that's just, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, as they used to say.
Wide world of sports.
Yeah. And that's what the Olympics is, right? You just get these incredible, these are the life stories of the young athletes here. And Mo Ahmed's been at it a long time. He's not as young as some of those guys. But yeah, a really, really fun race to watch and exhilarating to watch the finish.
And I don't know, obviously at all Olympics, all competition, there are people that don't win that are upset. But we've seen some real emotional post-competition interviews this year.
Yeah.
In the last 3 or 4 days.
A lot of tears.
Yeah, a lot of tears, a lot of frustration, and just that you could just feel the athlete it's over and just sort of the release of all that buildup.
Wow.
And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And then you mix in the poise and the confidence of Summer McIntosh. And you said the other day, the calmness.
Yeah.
Remarkable.
It is remarkable. I was talking to Marnie McBean, the great rower, now a senator on Parliament Hill, by the way. But Marnie was saying she and her boatmate, Kathleen Heddle, from the heyday of Canada rowing back in the 90s, they're the only Canadians to have 3 gold medals from Summer Olympics. Now, they're about to be joined by another one, I think. Yeah. And it's safe to say Summer McIntosh is going to have many kicks at the can of getting, adding the 2 that she's got now. And, who knows how many she'll end up with. Marnie figured 5 or 6 by the end of it all. Not this Olympics, but by the end of her career. But, Marnie was saying, she's been around. She was the chef de mission at Tokyo 3 years ago. She's been around high-performance sport her whole life. And she was just saying, for a 17-year-old young woman to have, she called it emotion management. Like
well said.
To be like in the thick of these incredible races where, you know, she was at the marquee swimming event day one of the Olympics against, you know, Ledecky and Titmus. And for her to, you know, pour herself into those events, race as well as she's raced, have people telling her she's going to be the next Ledecky, maybe better than Ledecky, and then for her to just be as calm and as professional and understand there's still business to be done here and not get caught up in it all. It's amazing.
It is. You know, all the greats are able to slow things down, but when you start out slowing things down mentally, that's impressive.
That's your part.
All right. Jays are spending the weekend in New York against the Yankees. Joining us on the Maple Toyota Hotline is Steve Phillips. Steve, welcome. How are you today, sir?
That's my cue right there. Slow mentally. Thank you so much.
It was hard for me to work that in.
I resemble that remark. So, yes, hello.
So put yourself in the Jays GM's chair. You've liquidated all those contracts that we talked about the other day that were expiring. You've got this collection of prospects. And the old commercial would be, what do you do? What do you do? What's next?
Yeah, well, I think what's next is understanding and making sure the message is sent that 2025 starts now. Right? This isn't 2024 anymore. This is all about 2025. And there's got to be some collective relationship in that clubhouse right now. It just didn't feel like they were connected this year in a way. And I don't know whether, Matt Chapman was the guy that pulled everybody together, and maybe before that it was Teoscar Hernandez and Gurriel who pulled everybody together, but it just didn't feel – it felt like they had 26 individuals sort of competing. Now, maybe that's just the feel from watching and the way that they were playing, and sometimes when you don't hit, it's hard to feel like you've got energy and that you're connected because the at-bats don't connect, but it just didn't feel like there was a connection. And then on occasions, when a guy would get a big hit, you'd see them celebrate, and they would feel like, okay, you know what, they are sort of pulling together. But I think it's really got to be this collective effort and focus, like a laser focus, that it's about 2025 right now, and you start to win in 2025 by how you finish 2024. So there's got to be a messaging as part of it. And then it's got to be, giving it bats to some players to figure out who they are and what they are at the major league level. Give them some runway to sort of show what they can do. And so whether that's Anderson Barger, whether that's Loperfido, and giving him an opportunity, even if it's at the expense of Varsho getting some at bats, I would be willing to do that. And Varsho would be one of the guys I would consider trading this offseason. There's a lot about his game that I really like, but there's a lot about his game that the team needs more on the offensive game, just the level of inconsistency. And I like his power when he can hit one. I like his speed when he can steal a base. But there's you can't steal first base, and the quality of the at-bat needs to be better and more disciplined and focused. And so, I would really start to think around, talk to teams, get a sense of where you match up, and start to have some of those thoughts and conversations around where you might be able to go next.
Steve, when a team struggles like this Blue Jays team has struggled, there's always that sense that anything could be on the table from management. Ross Atkins has said that as much as he made a lot of deals, he did not consider, or certainly was not close to trading Vladimir Guerrero Jr. There's been a lot of speculation that they might have traded Bo Bichette, might have been open to trading Bo Bichette, and Bo Bichette said at one point this season he would not have been surprised if he would have been traded. But since you didn't trade your two marquee guys, Steve, and you're going into this 2025 claiming you're going to be competitive, what is the strategy as a GM in terms of their long-term contract situations?
Right. So, I think that you got to keep – I would keep trying to sign them. The reality is there wouldn't be a deal for Bichette that would be satisfactory for the Blue Jays at the deadline. He underperformed and he's hurt. And so, you talk about, ways to sell the value of a player. Well, that completely chops him off at the knees, where he's got a calf injury and he's significantly underperformed. you're not going to get anything close to his real value. So you have to keep him until he builds that back up again. So even if they were going to trade Guerrero this year, and to me that would have been then you trade Gausman, Bassett, and Brios too. You couldn't have traded Bichette because you've got to wait for his value to come back to get something. But I think that what they need to do right now is strongly consider signing them. The big challenge has been, coming up with the right value because the way the players saw themselves was different than how they had performed. Now, Vladdy is starting to perform a little bit more like that guy that we saw a few years back. Like his launch angle and his swing is so much better right now. And so, I think you have to consider the premium there. And I think Bichette may be humbled to the point where now it's not a great position for him to negotiate, just like it wouldn't be for the Jays to trade him. It's not the best time for Bichette to negotiate a contract coming off of this season. But, there's some part of being immortal. Sometimes young guys feel like they're invincible. When you have a season like this, it's a reminder that nothing's promised, nothing's guaranteed, although a guaranteed contract. But, your premium play is not going to be guaranteed. So maybe there is a deal that he would be open to where the Jays are going to have to pay him more than he performed this year, but he's going to have to take less than what he believes his value was from the past. It's worth a shot. Look, if the answer is no, the answer is no. At least at that point, you have a sense of it, and it gives you some direction about what else to consider.
Steve, again, back to the busload of prospects. How do you work these guys into a lineup? I mean, obviously there's September recalls that everybody goes through, but how do you sort of maintain some sort of order here to make sure you get a look, but don't affect them in a negative way?
Yeah. So if a player has played at a level that he's shown that he's thriving in AAA, then I would bring him up and give him playing time and start to show what he can do. And, with kind of Phillips gone, it's opened up some of the infield a little bit for guys. And, I think they're getting a pretty good sense about what Davis Schneider is at this point after all the at-bats from last year and then this year, that, he's probably somewhere in between this year's performance and last year's performance, probably closer to this year's performance. And, you just start putting them in and give them the opportunities to play. Now, some of the younger players, you slot them into the minor league levels and you start to watch them. And, you want to help them assimilate, get comfortable. It's hard on young guys. I got traded when I was in the minor leagues. And I got traded from the Jackson Mets in Mississippi to the Glens Falls Tigers in upstate New York. And I drove across country. And there were no hotels because there was some convention going on, that I drove literally nonstop. You went to like a rest area, parked, shut my eyes for a little bit, and then kept driving. And then you got to get settled in. You got to find a place to live. It's not easy because, everybody's already got rooms. You're going to live somewhere for 2 months, and how are you going to get housing for that period of time? So there's a lot that goes into that. And, you don't get all your answers, but you really want to just give kids opportunities to get at bats, to throw innings, and start to figure out who they are.
Hey, Steve, bad news out of Anaheim with Mike Trout out for the season with a torn meniscus. Incredible player, obviously, until Shohei Ohtani came around. A lot of people considered him the preeminent hitter player in the game. And yet, 32 years old, Steve, rattled by injury, 11-time All-Star, 3-time MVP, 3 career playoff games. I mean, are we nearing the end here? Or does this guy have life left in him?
Well, he's got 6 years and $212 million left.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, and so he's going to keep showing up because he wants that paycheck. But I mean, it's just crazy. Like, he had a torn meniscus, had surgery on it, played 2 innings in a rehab game, and then tore meniscus in a different spot in his knee. He's broken the hamate. Now, he's a slow healer, too. That's the other thing. When he had the hamate bone, usually they go in there and, the hamate's not really a functional bone in the hand. And when it breaks, it's kind of right down where the hand meets the wrist and in the meat of that bone there. They usually go in, pull out the broken part, and grind down to make sure everything's, rounded and everything, and then you just wait for it to heal. But it took him forever to get ready. It took him 11 weeks after the meniscus surgery to be ready to go on a rehab assignment instead of what they thought could be 4 or 5. Like JT Realmuto's a catcher, and he had meniscus tear, had surgery, and he came back in 4 or 5 weeks. And now it doesn't mean that Trout is, soft in any way. It just means he's not a really great healer. So they're going to have to manage his playing time moving forward. When he does play, he plays well. I don't know about just DHing him, but I don't think I play him in center field anymore. I think I play him in the corner, in left or right, so that he doesn't have to cover as much ground. He'll DH some during the course of a week, but they keep thinking that they need to be competitive because they have him under contract. But he's an unmovable contract right now. Like, he can demand to be traded all he wants. Nobody wants him. They want the healthy guy, but the risk is too significant. They can't trade Mike Trout right now. And so he's 33 tomorrow. Tomorrow's his 33rd birthday. He's devastated by this. The Angels are. And, I just don't think we're ever going to see that Mike Trout again. He's got an 86 WAR in his career already, and, which is already among the elite Hall of Fame talents of the game. But, we're not going to see that guy for a full season again.
Steve, we were talking about renovating the Blue Jays earlier. This is a teardown. The White Sox have 27 wins and 84 losses. Complete disaster. What do you do with this?
Yeah, the interesting thing is that it's not surprising they have lost 84. I'm shocked they've won 27. It's a complete rebuild, and it's unfortunate because Pedro Grifol, who I know well, is probably going to lose his job as a manager, and I don't know why. Like, they don't have a managerial problem; they've got a roster problem. I mean, think about that. They were playing at like a 240 or 230 win percentage, and they had, Eric Fetty, and they had Kopech, and they had Tommy Pham, and they had Eloy Jimenez, and, they had all these, and they just traded them away. So they're worse now than what they were to win the 27 games. So, I think the worst record ever is, 40 and 120, and, they're on pace to win 39 games right now. And so they're on pace for the worst record ever. And all you can do is be patient and wait it out, and hope that you make good trades when you make them. And they didn't really in the three-way deal that they made. They packaged players to get 3 players in return when they think they had a right to demand 7 players for the 3 guys they gave up. It was just a young GM who sort of got taken advantage of a little bit by a couple veterans, and it's not the veterans' fault. Yeah, I think you have to wait it out and just hope that they draft well, and that they develop well, and they can start to build it a little bit at a time.
Hey, Steve, the Jays into the Bronx tonight to play the Yankees. It's Gausman versus Stroman on the mound. What did you make of Brian Cashman's deadline as Yankees GM? There were definitely people saying he didn't do enough, maybe didn't add enough pitching. Obviously got Jazz Chisholm, which is working out pretty well out of the gate here. What was your take on it? And I guess by extension, how real do you think the Yankees are as a threat to win it all this year?
Well, I think that, he had a deal on Flaherty, and now their plan was to trade for Flaherty and then to trade Nestor Cortez away.
Right.
And then Flaherty did not pass his physical. Or they didn't, the medicals that they saw, he's had a couple injections in his back. Doctor wasn't comfortable, so that they pulled off the deal. Now, he did fortify the bullpen with a couple of guys. So they, Mark Leiter Jr., who's really got a great split finger fastball, Al Leiter's nephew, Mark Leiter's son, and listen, Al pitched for the Yankees too. Mark pitched for the Yankees, and now Mark's son pitched for the Yankees, which is kind of cool. And so they did fortify their bullpen. They got Jazz Chisholm as well. They were in on Isaac Paredes, who went to the Cubs, but so too were the Astros. And Jazz Chisholm, I will tell you, the Yankees' energy level has gone up significantly, and they're smiling right now. They didn't smile. They were like 10 and 28 over a 38 game period. and there wasn't any smiling going on. Aaron Boone had bitter beer face after every game, trying to answer questions to explain what's going on with them. And Aaron Judge was trying to just say, we believe in ourselves. We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. Now they're like, this is fun because Jazz Chisholm's got this burst of energy, homered 4 home runs in the first 3 games. And so there's, now he'll cool off, but he really is loving life right there. And he feels embraced. All he talks about is Judge and Soto and how good they make me feel and how they've welcomed me. And so it's pretty good spirits right now with the Yankees. Garrett Cole was scratched the other day. Now they said it was just he had an illness. There was general body fatigue, which I can relate to that. I've got that almost every day right now. And so, but it's going to be interesting with Stroman. He's not pitched great for them. He gets to the 5th inning, and he can't seem to get out of the 5th inning. And so we'll see whether the Jays can take advantage of that in this game today.
So based on, what you just said there in the trade deadline, would you have the Yankees defeating the Orioles in first place from the American League East?
Yeah, I'd probably still have the Orioles ahead of them. I would. I think I'd have the Orioles ahead of them. I didn't love the Trevor Rogers trade. He got dinged around a little bit against the Guardians yesterday. I did like the Zach Eflin acquisition. And I also thought that, they took leftovers from the Phillies bullpen. So the Phillies traded Sir Anthony Dominguez and Gregory Soto, 2 guys who they upgraded, and then moved them somewhere else. Now, the Orioles got them, and the Orioles are good at getting the most out of players. But they also lost Jared Westberg, their third baseman, the other day to the hit by pitch and by Rodriguez. And so, they're calling up Bud. They have a guy calling up, one of the top prospects in all of baseball, Kobe Norris. And so he's coming up today to play third base for them. And there are comparisons to Scott Rowland, Troy Gloss for him. And so, he's a guy that people really like a lot. So I do think the Orioles are still a slightly better team, but they're not going to separate. This is going to come down to the end, and it won't shock me if the Yankees win, but I think that the Orioles have the better roster.
Hey, Steve, what did you think of the Major League Baseball release of the postseason schedule plan, which I guess in a change from previous years is a little more flexible so that you could move up the World Series. If both championship series were to end in 5 games or less, you could move up the World Series, get it done a few days earlier. Are you in favor of that, or how do you see it?
So it's interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about it because I personally would like to line up my pitching the way I wanted to for the World Series and have my ace go into the first game. But if both teams are facing the same thing, I guess it's okay because sometimes we do lose momentum after the LCS is done when there's that much time off. And teams cool off a little bit, and that comes into play. So I'm not opposed to it at all.
Steve, thanks very much. Well, I don't know if that's an alarm or anything, but you should wake up now.
Geez, I told you I was a little slow mentally today, so I appreciate that, guys.
Thanks very much. Steve Phillips. Steve Phillips joined us in the Maple Toyota hotline. Check out Maple Toyota's huge truck and SUV lineup, including Tundra, 4Runner, Highlander, and my favorite, the Grand Highlander, in stock, ready to deliver. Visit mapletoyota.com.
Was that like he didn't have a seatbelt on? What was that?
Somebody was backing up. Somebody was back. Maybe he was sort of thinking about what he said before.
That's right, reversing.
Yeah, so I know that feeling because when I was talking about the soccer, the women's soccer, I was talking about Canada and Germany tomorrow.
Or Nigeria.
Nigeria is Sunday. That's basketball.
Women's basketball.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I call this Olympic-itis.
Yes,
when
sir.
You start ad-libbing it, and then you've got half a thought and another half a thought, and not a good thing when you're ad-libbing to connect the two thoughts, but I got lost there. So
there's a lot to keep straight.
There is.
A little more than the average Leaf game.
Yeah.
Raptor game.
Well, the average Leaf game is 2 or 3 things.
Yeah.
In the Raptors game, there's 200 things because there's a lot of points.
That's true. But here, there's like thousands of things because there's all these sports that we don't always cover, and you got to keep track of everything. And
but it's good. I like it.
Men's teams, women's teams. You got it's outstanding.
Yeah,
like
and
we're gonna miss it. Like I always have that pang when the Summer Olympics ends.
That's a crash.
There's something. It's like it's like when you have to like Labor Day ends. It's just like it feels like I'm going back to the grind of regular life, and you don't get this beautiful Olympic morning where you can wake up and Watch the best athletes in the world.
Labor Day is actually good, though. I mean, crunch of CFL, the NFL is back, hockey camps are around the corner, and basketball too.
I know, but you know that feeling when you're a kid?
Yeah.
Like
that
was
was dreadful.
The holidays over, right?
Well,
the good times are over.
Of course,
we're back to the grind.
And because it's the first week of August, the back to school sales are already on. And you can remember as a kid going, no, it's the first week of August. Leave me alone.
I don't want to hear it. Don't bring up that school word.
Yeah. So Canada 88-85 over Spain today. Men's Olympic basketball 3-0 Canada is. Jevohn Shepherd is going to join us on OverDrive next on TSN2, TSN 1050, the iHeartRadio app, and streaming online. Welcome back to OverDrive. Jim Tatti and Dave Feschuk from the Toronto Star with you on Mail It In Friday. Just going over in the commercial break the possibilities for the Canadian men's national basketball team at the Olympics. Winners today, 88-85 over Spain. The quarters will go Tuesday. Looks like could be France, could be South Sudan, but there's a lot of caveats that have to be satisfied for South Sudan. So we'll just leave it at that. We'll worry about that when we get there. Quarterfinals all go on Tuesday. There's action still to happen tomorrow to set all this up. So let's bring in Jevohn Shepherd now. Works with us on the Raptors coverage on TSN 1050. Also, Raptors, NBA, and NCAA on the TV side as well. Jevohn, welcome in. Your thoughts on what you saw today?
Well, what I saw today, first of all, thank you, Cat Man. What I saw today was a team that is poised, a team that's locked in. And I'm on social media and I see some people talking about the close game and the let up and so forth. But this team has won 3 games. And I think what everybody is forgetting is this is the first time these guys have all been here. There's nobody on that roster that has played on this stage, on this platform before. So I think there's a lot to be said about a group that is learning on the fly, but executing and being sponges. They go into the locker room at half, they go into their huddles, and they come out and they apply more pressure or they make some adjustments on the go, playing against a Spain team that has far more experience than they do on this stage, and a team that's playing out of desperation. So I was impressed there. I think what we've seen all tournament for the past 3 games is, there's SGA, yes, there's RJ Barrett, yes, there's Jamal Murray, and you think of this team as an offensive juggernaut, but they've done everything on the defensive side of the floor. Lou Dort, Dylan Brooks, they've had opposing guards and wings strapped into a car seat, and they can't go anywhere. SGA, right, atop the tournament in blocks. He's getting deflections. He's giving effort in the open court defending. RJ as well. There's a physical group. So there's a lot. I'm still excited. I think this team is just scratching the surface of what they're capable of. But, wow, going into the quarters, they've had 3 great tests, and I don't think that can be overlooked in Greece, in Australia, in Spain, and they've had to win those games different ways, which has been very impressive.
When you look at this defensive intensity we're seeing, Jevohn, from the Canadian side, led by Lou Dort and Dylan Brooks, but really an entire 5-man unit effort, especially, after halftime of the Australian game. And since then, it's been really noticeable, the uptick in intensity. I mean, where do you lay the credit? Is it do you give some to the coaching staff and Jordi Fernandez for instilling that type of a defensive mentality, or do you think it's more player-driven when you've got players like Dort and Brooks who take such pride on that side of the ball?
It's funny you ask that because I spent some time with the team in training camp while they were in Vegas, leading up to their exhibition game against USA. And the reoccurring sentiment and reoccurring words out of the guy's mouth when I spoke to SGA, when I spoke to Dylan, when I spoke to RJ, is we're locked in defensively, right? RJ came up to me and laughed and chuckled that I'm even playing defense. I'm getting up full court and playing defense. Shea walked over to me once the team had scrimmaged, after the team had scrimmaged, and he said, I know you see me playing defense. I know you see me strapping up full court. I'm even playing defense now. So there was some enthusiasm and some spirit there on that end of the floor. And as much as I'd love to give, that credit to head coach Jordi Fernandez, I think it starts with the players, right? There's a willingness, there's a will to play defense, and that's where the defensive end starts. There's nothing tactical. You can have your schemes, you can have your game plans defensively, but if guys aren't willing to sit down in their chair and strap up, you accomplish nothing. And Dylan Brooks and Lou Dort have absolutely led that charge. I think there's one play that really personifies this is Lou Dort against Australia rips the basketball, right, like taking candy from a baby, out of Josh Giddey's hands and goes the length of the floor, right? That was that big brother, little brother moment, but it has been the identity of this Canadian team.
Yeah, and so you almost don't want to ask where it comes from because it doesn't matter. It's just so nice to see it, right?
You don't ask, right? And
yeah.
you let it roll because you've seen it happen. Let's think back. Against Greece, it was a game where you have to get Giannis Antetokounmpo out of the game, and you have to take Nick Kalathis, who's the best passing guard probably in this tournament, really neutralize those two guys. Giannis, you're not going to stop, but you made it difficult on him. Nick Kalathis was a negative in that game, non-existent. And then you fast forward to a game against Australia where maybe the on-ball pressure isn't the way you win this game, but you have to be so much more in tune with the off-ball actions, the cuts, the splits, the slips on back screens, and you have to have so much more communication there. It isn't as much, hey, moving our feet, being physical in the open court and turning over the guards, but they did that against Australia in the second half. Then you fast forward to Spain, and another one of those games where you have to defend actions off of the ball, Spain actions, stagger, single doubles under the basket for their wings coming up. And then, some of the ball handlers, Lorenzo Brown had himself a tough day today. He's going to have nightmares of Lou Dort turning him in the open court, getting into him, really dictating where he goes on the court, which made it tough on them getting into their offense. They had to move him off of the ball and have somebody else bring it up to really start to get some flow.
So lurking out there, Jevohn, Canada's taking care of business, 3-0, done exactly what they're supposed to do. But lurking out there is a little team known as the United States of America. And, they still got another game left in group stage play against Puerto Rico tomorrow. Everybody's, everybody knows who they are. But, when you've watched the game so far from all the rest of the teams, including Canada and the States, like how far or how close are the rest of the field to this American team? Like, how vulnerable are the Americans in your mind to not walking out of this thing with the gold medal everybody expects them to win?
Extremely vulnerable, right? You look at the fact, for me, what's very telling is they're still trying to figure out rotation. They're still trying to figure out how to get into their offense and how to click. I mean, right now, KD's playing exceptionally well. LeBron is playing well. But you still have not figured out how to use Embiid in this mix. We still don't. Jason Tatum really hasn't played his best basketball. We haven't seen the best from Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards. So I'm naming a number of guys, and when you look at this USA team, you think about their personnel. How can this team be beat? Well, this team still has to figure out themselves within their locker room. Steve Kerr still has to figure out, this team within the locker room. They've had some tests. We've seen it in, the friendly games. They've gotten tested a number of times. So when you have a group like that, and you're trying to figure out, how to distribute the basketball, there is only one basketball. And on the fly, you're trying to figure out the international rules, right? There's so many things that they can beat themselves. They can beat themselves. Just the simple fact that they're still trying to figure out a lot on the fly. So I do think they're extremely vulnerable because they're also getting everybody else's best shot. When you play USA, it's not one of the games that you can take off. And you want, because they're the big bad wolf, because they're, this USA team and all of the guys, and they're expected to win, they're going up against teams that have competitors on that other end too, right? So they want to eat, they want to win, they want to come out with a victory just as much as USA does, and they have to play 10 times more. The room for error isn't as great for some of their opponents.
Jevohn, you're really talking about things that excel for Team Canada, team chemistry, game management that Team USA is still trying to figure out. And the other one that I want to throw at you, because you brought it up there, Team Canada understands FIBA basketball, and Team USA is still figuring that out, right?
Well, you have a head coach, Jorge Fernandez, who has experience in international play, right? He is Spanish. He's had experience with the Nigerian national team. He's had experience with the Spanish national team as an assistant as well. So he's very familiar with the rules, with the tempo of the game, with the pace of the game. But he's also dealing with a group of guys, 11 guys, that are accustomed to the NBA game, right? So his challenge is a little different. It's trying to to merge the two. But I do think you have a slight advantage there. But for Canada, it is, what's your identity, right? And who are you going to continue to be in this tournament? And if you can win on the defensive end of the floor, the rules don't matter as much because you're forcing teams to cough the basketball up. You're getting in transition, creating offense from your defensive prowess. And if you can do it on that end of the floor, you're not as concerned about the rules. And that's to me is the stark contrast between both teams is that Canada's more locked in on the defensive end than USA is. USA knows that it can go out and just flat out outscore you. But when you're going out to outscore you, that's when the rules come into and the FIBA game and the lack of spacing come more into play.
Hey, Jevohn, you don't want to nitpick victories, and certainly we won't. We'll give Canada its due here for winning its third game in a row to open this Olympics. But if you're sort of, looking at weak spots for this team and what might hurt them in a must-win game, we've always been talking about the lack of size. And today I think it was exposed a little bit, obviously not fatally, but, we saw Spain really get a big edge on the boards. 17 offensive rebounds they out-rebounded Canada 40-29. Canada's starting center, Dwight Powell, with 1 rebound. I mean, not exactly an ideal scenario there. How much does that concern you that, against the wrong opponent, that lack of interior presence and rebounding in particular could be a factor?
The rebounding on a whole doesn't concern me as much as the defensive rebounding.
Right.
Because I think today they gave up a number of offensive rebounds. And remember, they're doing an exceptional job on the defensive end. They're defending the three-point line. They're forcing teams into late shot clock violations. Now it is time to you've got to get the rebound and close those other possessions out, right? And that's where I was a little bit concerned. But I think that's something that there's a quick adjustment there, and that's an extra effort, right? And an extra, putting a body on somebody or more communication. A shot goes up, making sure everybody's alert. And then, yes, you don't have the size, but you have some guys that have some quickness. You also have some guys that are extremely strong, although they're, maybe 2 inches, 3 inches shorter than some of these 7-footers. They're strong enough to push them out of the paint. So that is effort. That is just attention to detail, and everybody knowing a shot goes up, collective effort. The part for me that is not, I don't want to say concerning, but an area of improvement, an area of adjustment is sometimes when this group has the wholesale second lineup on the floor, subs on the floor, they've been outplayed, right, the last 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
And when you've had the sprinkle of those guys, they've tended to play well. Like today when Andrew Nembhard came into the game late and he was playing with SGA and playing with that starting group, there wasn't much of a drop-off. So I think going forward, maybe we see Jordy shorten his rotation a bit and really try and maximize 8, maybe 9 guys now that you're going into a quarters, now that you're pushing for a semis and a final matchup. I do think that rotation will get shortened a bit, and then that'll improve some of the areas that have been weak for Canada.
I like what you said there because I think, when you're planning this and you're watching it, you want to look at what other teams will try to do to get Canada off its game. What else would somebody try to exploit against the Canadian men's basketball team?
Well, you really have to move the basketball, right? And Canada's done an exceptional job, a tremendous job of on-ball pressure. And what we learned, especially from the Australian game, is sometimes, the other 4 defenders get caught ball watching. And I'd be mesmerized, too, when you see Lou Dort forcing these guards to turn and dribble the basketball up the court with their back turned. When Dylan Brooks, is really getting into guys and flustering them. Sometimes the other 4 guys are just mesmerized at what the heck is going on. These guys are completely controlling the game on the defensive end, and then there's a backdoor cut. There's a ghost screen that leads to a slip, and that was that first half of Australia. So if I'm an opposing team, I'm going to invite some of that pressure from Canada, but I'm also going to make sure that there's a lot of activity off of the basketball as well, so that everybody has to be alert.
Hey, Jevohn, the other thing that Canada hasn't done particularly well, and it hasn't hurt them, which is the amazing thing, is they haven't really shot the 3 well. They made 6 threes today. They're shooting 34% from behind the arc. Now, when you look at, it's not terrible, but when you look at the 2 teams that are ahead of them in the seeding, the States is shooting 50% from three-point range. making an average of 15 threes a game. Germany's shooting 38%, making 11 a game. And Canada's making about 7 a game. So do you think there's the potential there for them to shoot it better? And if so, how do you think they might be able to achieve that?
Put it this way. If I'm an opposing team, if I'm an opponent, that concerns me that Canada hasn't shot the basketball well yet.
Yeah.
Because that just means there's more left in the tank on that end of the floor. And, law of averages. If I take, this is a small sample size, but if I look at Lou Dort's shooting numbers, if I look at Dylan Brooks' shooting numbers, if I look at RJ's shooting numbers, how he ended the season with the Raptors, those are guys that have shot the ball the best in their career right now, right? Lou's numbers, overall numbers are down, but his efficiency has been up, right? So it is coming. The shooting is going to fall. The shots are going to drop at some point, and you know it. And that would be more concerning for me if I'm an opposing team. I would still be trailing, and I would still be running those guys off of the three-point line because shooting is contagious. And as soon as you see 1, 2, 3 go down and guys start getting a rhythm, guys start getting the flow, you start having to close out on 1 or 2 players a little bit more aggressive, and, that ball starts moving, you'd be surprised at how much that becomes infectious and contagious amongst the team.
Jevohn, thanks very much. I know we had to move you around to make this work. Appreciate you stopping by and miss you, buddy.
No problem. Miss you too, Tat, man.
Jevohn Shepherd, great analysis. In this FIBA game, I mean, just to refresh everybody, 5 fouls and you're out.
Yeah.
10-minute quarters. You can park in the paint, and it's a much more physical game.
Well, and I think Jevohn made a great point there about, Jordi Fernandez is being pretty wide-ranging in his playing guys. He played 12 guys today. Now, Melvin Medjim only got in for, a little cameo, but 11 of the guys on the roster got in at least 5 minutes, and a lot of them obviously played a lot more than that. It'll be interesting to see if he shortens that rotation as the games get more important.
But if you think of it, and I know it meant a lot for both teams, but this was probably the only time that he'll be able to do that.
Well, this is a big, you're right. It meant a lot. It meant more to Spain than it meant to Canada. You're right. But to your point about the physicality, guys get worn out. When you're asking guys to play.
It's more intense.
Yeah, when you're asking guys to play, and I love the anecdote Jevohn gave us about, being at training camp and talking to RJ about, hey, RJ's playing defense. They're serious about defense if RJ Barrett has decided he's going to play some defense. That's impressive stuff, but takes a toll.
Oh, sure it does. It's just much more intense. It doesn't, in a regular NBA game, there's ebbs and flows, timeouts and all that. I mean, there are timeouts in this, but it just seems that it's a little more frantic.
Yeah.
A little more demanding.
Because every possession is so much more important and because the games are shorter.
Mail In Fridays is brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. BP is serving fish bowls and ice-cold pints in the patio all summer long. So grab your sunscreen. Let's have ourselves a weekend. And this is a long weekend. The Boston Pizza patio is calling you.
I hear that call.
So
Sounds
do I.
good.
In fact, I hear the commercial. We're going to get stomped by it. This is OverDrive and TSN2, TSN 1050, the iHeartRadio app, and streaming online. Oh, yes, guy. Mail It In Friday, Getaway Friday, Long Weekend Friday, whatever. Jim, Tatti, Dave Feschuk with you from the Toronto Star. OverDrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. And that is literally everything.
No doubt.
Jays in New York tonight. Loperfido will bat second. Chisholm for the Yankees batting sixth.
Yeah, that's why you watch for these last handful of games, right? From here to the end, it's like, what did we get? And Loperfido is the first guy up, second guy up in the lineup tonight, but the first of the prospect haul that Jays fans are going to get a chance to look at here. And
I applaud that. I don't have any problem with what they've done, but it's not going to sustain itself for a full season. I mean, in the winter, they've got to have a checklist, and they better hit all of it.
You're right. It's a long list, though. That's the problem.
It is, but there's really no option.
It might be too short a winter to fill such a long list, but
well, think of it. So you do 50% of your list, and the season starts with the way this one did.
Yeah.
What would you do then?
Then you're in trouble.
Yeah. So you always have to ask yourself, what happens when it doesn't work out? I mean, forget about what you wanted and who you acquired. When it doesn't work out on the field, what are you going to do then? If you're in late May, as they were this year, in early June, and it looks like it's not going to happen. I mean, to have that happen 2 years in a row after such promise would not be good.
Well, that's just it. But, I mean, the problem with this year was that a lot of us were sitting here during the winter saying they haven't done enough.
Oh, I think most people would.
Yeah.
And
so
the ultimate distraction of Ohtani.
Yeah, you had the Ohtani thrill ride of the charter jet that wasn't his charter. And after that, it was just like, well, we went shopping. We thought about spending multiple hundreds of millions of dollars of the best player in the sport, but then we were just done shopping. Like, we didn't get him, and then we just said, we're good.
And
internal improvement.
Yeah, and the Brinks truck turned around and was never to be seen again.
And I understand there were two budgets. One, the budget for Ohtani was something beyond baseball.
Well,
right?
it was.
He can be your marketing engine for your entire telecommunications empire, right? And he's bigger than baseball. He can expand you internationally as a company. He can be the face of your operation beyond, selling beers down at the Dome, right? This is much bigger than that. But still, I mean, we all knew they didn't have enough pop in their bat. They still don't have enough pop in their bat. And to your point, it's going to be a tough winter trying to get that pop.
That's right. Looking for pop. Coming up next, Bob Weeks talking about Olympic golf and Mike McIntyre talking about Olympic tennis as OverDrive continues on a mail-it-in getaway Friday. You're watching on TSN 2, listening on TSN 1050, the iHeartRadio app, and streaming online.